In 1621, Pilgrims and Native Americans celebrated a feast of Thanksgiving together. You know about today's Thanksgiving holiday, which is based on this 1621 celebration. But see if you can guess the answers to these questions about the event that is often called the first Thanksgiving. In what season was the 1621 Thanksgiving celebration held? Summer, fall, winter, or spring? Which food was not served at the celebration? Duck, steak, deer, or corn? How many days did the celebration last? 1, 2, 3, or 4? You may also have some questions of your own. Who held this celebration and why were they thankful? You will read that story in this lesson and you will find the answers to the questions above. As you have read in the stories of Jamestown, Quebec, and New Amsterdam, colonists came for many reasons. They came to explore, to gain wealth, to spread their religion, and to live on land of their own. Some of the early settlers, however, had another. They came in search of religious freedom. The story of the Pilgrims begins in England during the early 1500s. At this time, England broke away from the Roman Catholic Church. England's King Henry VIII created a new Christian church called the Church of England. Everyone in England had to belong to this church. As time passed, some people felt that the Church of England was too much like the Roman Catholic Church. One group was called the Separatists because they wanted to separate from the Church of England. Separatists also faced persecution or unjust treatment because of their beliefs. So Henry VIII wasn't a super great guy, and they wanted to break away from his church that he forced everybody in England to join. A man named William Bradford was a leader of the group of separatists. Bradford's group decided to leave England and start a settlement of their own, where they could worship as they pleased. These colonists became known as pilgrims. A pilgrim is a person who journeys for religious reasons. William Bradford went to the Virginia Company and asked for permission to begin a new settlement in Virginia. He said that the Pilgrims would live by themselves under the general government of Virginia. Leaders of the Virginia Company agreed. The Pilgrims began preparing for their journey, knowing there were hard times ahead. The dangers were great, Bradford wrote. The difficulties were many. So even though it was going to be rough, they decided to leave because it was easier than living in England and being forced to be a part of a church that was corrupt and yucky. In September 1620, about 100 pilgrims crowded into a small ship called the Mayflower. Storms battered the Mayflower during its long journey across the Atlantic Ocean. The ship was pushed off course. Instead of arriving in Virginia, the Pilgrims landed much farther north at Cape Cod. John Smith had named this region of North America New England. There's another one of those original names, the name we still use today. The Pilgrims decided to find a place to settle in New England. They chose a rocky harbor the English called Plymouth. Before landing their ship, Pilgrim leaders decided to write a plan of government for their colony. They called the plan the Mayflower Compact. It said that the Pilgrims' government would make just and equal laws for the general good of the colony. All adult males aboard the Mayflower signed the Mayflower Compact. Women were not allowed to participate. Like Virginia's House of Burgesses, the Mayflower Compact was an important step towards self-government in the English colonies. In November of 1620, the Pilgrims finally set foot on solid land. Bradford wrote that they fell upon their knees and blessed the God of heaven who had brought them over the vast and furious ocean. It was not the best time of year to start a colony in New England, as William Bradford wrote. They that know the winters of that country know them to be sharp and violent. Many pilgrims were already weak from the long voyage. Now they faced freezing weather, hunger, disease, In the first 3 months at Plymouth, nearly half of the settlers died. When spring finally arrived, something unexpected happened. While the Pilgrims were at work planting seeds they had brought from England, a Native American named Samoset walked into their settlement and called out, "Hello, Englishmen!" Samoset explained that he had learned English from fishermen and traders. This meeting began a period of friendly relations between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people. A Thanksgiving celebration. Samoset told the Pilgrims of another Native American named Squanto. Squanto had been captured by European traders and sold into slavery in Spain. Later freed, he went to England where he learned English. Now he lived with the Wampanoag people. Acting as translator, Squanto helped the Pilgrims make a peace treaty with Massasoit, the leader of the Wampanoag people. Squanto also showed the Pilgrims where the best hunting and fishing areas were located, and he taught them how to grow corn in the rocky New England soil. That fall, Pilgrims gathered their first harvest in Plymouth. "Our corn did prove well, and God be praised," wrote a Pilgrim named Edward Winslow. The Pilgrims decided to hold a celebration of Thanksgiving. They invited the Wampanoag, who had helped them survive a very difficult year. Edward Winslow described the celebration. "Many of the Indians coming amongst us, and among the rest of their greatest king Massasoit, with some 90 men, whom for 3 days we entertained and feasted." The Pilgrims of the Wampanoag feasted on deer, wild duck, lobster, fish, cornbread, pumpkin, squash, berries, and wild plums. The 3-day celebration also included parades, games, and races. So no steak. Where was the first Thanksgiving? The celebration of the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag in 1621 is often called the first Thanksgiving. But at about the same time, there were Thanksgiving celebrations in several different parts of North America. Settlers in Virginia, for example, declared a day of Thanksgiving to Almighty God. Look at the map to see some other places where European colonists held Thanksgiving celebrations. So we've got Plymouth in 1621, the Berkeley Plantation in 1619, St. Augustine in 1565, Palo Duro Canyon in 1541, and El Paso in 1598. All right, Betty, so now there's a seesaw activity for you to do.